good day to all. Sam here with you on Tuesday, July 31st. And as it's a Tuesday, we call them traditional Tuesdays. So what we do is we poll our members, let them decide which two assets are going to get reviewed here in video. First up, per that polling, is the dollar to the Canadian dollar. Now, this is a pretty interesting chart. We've looked at this in the past, but here's an update here. Now, we're gonna dig in here to the hard right edge, but just a quick recap of where we've been, and we want to get some sense of where we are in the count, if that's advantageous to, if it helps us in terms of what we're anticipating, in terms of where we're going next and potential swings, and if there are any setups here. So looking back, as I will often remind you, whenever you're looking at traditional assets, I want to strongly encourage you to start with the daily or even the 3-day to get a sense of if we have a count that's in play, and is it trading technically? What do we anticipate happening next? So all that. So here we sit with a daily chart of dollar. Now it's not the easiest count I've ever had to work through. This is some complexity here in getting this third just right, but I think we've got a decent count here. So I'm going all the way back here to the 2011 low. So we look at that low. That's almost to the date here. So that's July 28th of 2011, and we peak up here January of 2016. All right, so talk about a sustained trend. That's the thing that I like to remind you when you're looking at FX. These are trending markets, and these trends sustain for a long period of time, which is why it's so important to look at it long term and see where we are. Do we have a completed count? Are we in the middle of a count? So for working from that low here, we've got a fairly decent 1-2 that kicks in here. Now, there's a couple of things that are worth noting here. So just trying to qualify it. So just standard ops here, going from the low here, this pivot low here, up to our candidate for a 1. Oh, we get kind of an elongated A wave here, kick up for the B. We come down, we get a tick or two through the 786, but we know that's a common spot for a wave 2, right? As the market fights to establish a new trend, bears trying to push to new lows. Bulls hold it here. So we get a pivot here, so we get a candidate for our wave 2, and then we can see here algo targets here all the way to the fourth target of the negative 1618 gets tagged. So if we think about that, so here's being this candidate. Well, of course, we're going to want to consider a pitchfork on this. So grabbing a pitchfork and just going to that low up to my wave 1 high, we come down to this candidate for a wave 2. All right, so what do we get? First up, we get our classic, our favorite, we get a corner pocket here, right? So there's the wave 2 at the 786, and we ultimately get it. It takes a while, but there it is, right? 80% odds, best odds in trading. If these 3 pivots hold, right, that's the caveat. If they hold, let's get it right on there. If they hold, 80% probability of making the median line. Now, so when do we actually get there? We get there in 2015. This low is 2012. Takes 3 years to get there. Yet to the tick right here, the wave 5 here, what I'm proposing is wave 3 to the tick, right? So there we go, right? So that's why, I don't showing you enough of those to where I hope now that you pay attention to those. So a 3-year wait, right? Could you have stayed with that? It's easier to show it to you in hindsight than think about having to go through all of that to get that target. Yet there it is, right? So this geometry looks like we framed the market pretty nicely here. So we're pushing, and then ultimately get up to the upper parallel before we see this correction. So from this swing low, it would appear, given that I get a perfect tap of the median line here for a candidate as a wave 3, we come down to the lower parallel here for our wave 4 and we go, as I've shown you before, often if there's a hesitation around the median line, it's indecision before the market decides which way we're going, lower parallel, upper parallel. Here we end up getting both of them. We get the push to the upper parallel, then the rip down to the lower parallel here. We can see all this action here as we are fighting between the lower parallel and the 1.5, and ultimately we break it. So trend is complete. So let's pulling that off, having now shown you that. So we can go 1, 2, 3 down here. Here's our 4. We get this nice little A, B, C in for our 4. Up we go for the 5. So of course we want to see how did that look. Was that technical? So we can go up to our wave 3. Well, this right to the Vegas wave, I should say. 2 to 3, we get a little A, B, C. We're between the 23 and the 38. Right, strong market, that's where we're looking for it. Well, we blow right through the first target and get a few shy from the second target. So a good looking 5-wave structure here to give us a candidate here as a 1-wave. All right, so we can see we've got this completed 1-wave here, candidate for this completed 1-wave here that took, almost 7 years to complete. 5 years, excuse me, 5 years to complete. All right, so we say, okay, well, I know I've seen that when wave 1's complete, we're looking for the 50 for a wave 2, but that can't be any good on a daily chart. It's just too long, too much time. I can't imagine that will be effective for a daily chart. It's to the tick. Right, so we don't have to wonder about what this. So, well, of course, we want to see if we can get the count to fit for that as our wave 2 to confirm it. So here we've got our A, B, and our C, giving us our candidate for a wave 2. Now there's some work that has to be done here to break that down. So let's see, let's go to a 4-hour, see if we can dig in on that. I won't spend too much time here. So we're getting over to the hard right edge, but let's just there's some things to learn here. So as we go through this, where was I here? So here's let's scrunch it up a little bit. So here's our tap of the 50 right here. It's our wave C. So let's bring this down here. Here's our wave 2. So all of this lines up for us here. So we've got to get an ABC out of that on the assumption, right, that we have the wave 1 here up here. We have our wave 1 in, and we're looking for a 3-wave correction. All right, so just a straight rip down for the A wave. Now we do get some real complexity here. Actually, this would be up here. We get some real complexity here in this correction. So from my A low here, I've got it as 1, 2, 3, 4 overlapping the 1 here. So we're looking for a diagonal. So we get an ABC up into our 3rd, 4 down here, right, overlapping the 1, and then it looks like it's a very skinny B wave to give us a 5th here, and it looks like it's a true double. Well, it's a couple ticks higher here. So effectively, it's a double top. It's technically not a truncated 5th as we do get a new high. But nonetheless, we've got a 5-wave diagonal to give us a candidate here for an A. I didn't label it. So this would be a candidate for our A wave here. This would be the B wave, and then this would be our, let's see, this would be our C of B. So I got to get that up one. So we've got A wave here, A, B, C down for the B wave here. So see it in here. Well, let's see it. We'll go up a degree. That'll be easier to spell. Let's see, this one's already up a degree, so we can keep it here. So there's the A, B, C for the B. Then we get an A, B, C to give me the C of the B. Right, so from there, so we can look, we want to be anticipating. We know a wave B, like a wave 2, anywhere from the 50 to the 786. Well, we get a couple of, so interesting. So look at the reaction here we get at the 50, right? I promise you that's algo selling here at the 50. They can't get their target. Ultimately, they get pretty close to it down here. The 50, they can't get any traction on it. We've got another leg up. This looks like a front run on the 618. So they front run it, take it down here. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky. It's kind of a judgment call. Who wins here? So the bears are trying to push it to the 23.6. They run into the 50. So this algo kicks in to buy it. This one is denied. Do they ultimately stay with that here as we've gone back up to challenge the 50? It's hard to say. Hard to say, but we know this, an algo kicked in here to buy it. So we're really, in some respects, you could just analyze this. Oh, geez, I got to go to an 8-hour here to get this. So we can basically look at this and say, well, we've got a pretty well-established range here between 50 to 50. So swing high to swing low, we've got here's our 50, we've come to the 50, so we're just kind of in this range and no clear break, but we can use the wave count to help us identify what's likely coming. So if this is going to hold, this A, B, C down for my 2, very technical pivot here, well, that would imply that we've got to get started on a very big third wave that's going to be much, much higher. All right, so putting that all together, let's see if I can strip this down and see where we are here over on the hard right edge. So candidate here for our 2. I get kind of a squirrely 1 wave here. Interestingly, it's an impulse. So if let's see if I can dig into this here, show this to you. So here's our candidate for our wave 1. So come here. Wave 1 kicks in right here. So I get a 1, 2, 3, A. So it's actually kind of a cluster. So here's an A, B, C into a B into this double top area. So it would look, so labeling it, as I should do here. So we'd have A, it looks like this is A, B, C coming down for the C here of the 4. Come here. So we'd have to do it this way. So this has to come down. So we get our A, B, C here. We do not overlap the 1. Then we've got one more little push up to give us the 5 as a candidate here for this triple topping. We call it triple top here, certainly, for a candidate as a 1 wave. Well, now we're, of course, just standard ops. We know if a wave 2 can be anywhere from the 50 to the 786. We get 786 to the tick. Right? So this is kind of, I've talked about this before, where markets tend to have personalities. But look at what happens here after the 786. Right? Do you think this is technical? So from here, we go right to the algo target to give us our wave 3 target. So I've got a candidate here as a 1, 2, A, B, C down for my 4. Well, if that's completed, now let's think about that. All right, so wait a sec. So let's get, this is what I want off of there. All right, so if my 2 is going to hold here, and we know we like this pivot here, and I've got this candidate as a 1, 2. I go 3, and then I've got an A, B, C down for 4, clearly overlapping the 1. So I've got some sort of diagonal, a contender for a diagonal here, coming in for a wave 1. So from this 2, this would be wave 1 of the third, the larger degree third wave. Well, so is it technical? Well, we know this, as I've shown you many times. When you're looking at a diagonal here and trying to anticipate that 5th, we want to take the start of the wave 1 and project all the way through the pivot of the wave 3, looking for some sort of technical significance and confluence down here at our wave 4. So grabbing that, so I'm just going to go from my start of my wave 1 up to my wave 3 high. All right, so here we come. And algos get it yet again. So here's the reaction at the 50, and they go, tick or 2 through it. Just to be sure they're filled, they get their target, and then we see this reaction coming through. So additionally, if I'm not mistaken, there was a little geometry here that was interesting. So here's our corner pocket right here. All right, so from that right now, so I'm measuring. So remember, the first one is here. All right, so this is the first corner pocket. So you look here, so you're getting through the median line just enough to get up and tag the algo target. I promise you that doesn't happen randomly, guys. So here we go. So corner pocket, right? Remember, as I've shown you many, many times, the highest odds in trading, if that pivot holds, 80% odds of making the median line. All right, I'd like to think there is no one who watches my videos who doesn't draw a pitchfork upon seeing 3 pivots. I don't care what the time frame is. I've probably shown that to you 500 times. I don't. You gotta factor that into your analysis. Okay, so there we go. So here, corner pocket, boom, algo target down for the 4, going up for that. Now we don't make the median line here. So potentially now what that's implying is weakness. We've made it once, so the trading principle has been realized here. So you might look at that and think, well, maybe I've got to draw it from the wave 2. So if I grab here and I go up to my wave 3 pivot, come down to my wave 4, well, it's kind of the same question. You got to ask yourself, well, is that implying, is that implying weakness, failure to make the median line? So we have the same setup here. I have 3 pivots, but we can't make the median line. Well, of course, we'll check the modifiers, but I don't think we're going to have anything that lines it. Well, that's not bad. Let's try median modified. I think I prefer the shift here. So given that, so from these pivots here, so hesitation as we buffer around the median line. It looks to me like we've got another push down here potentially now for our wave 2 here. So this geometry seems to be holding the market and at least framing it here fairly closely. So this is a candidate here now for a wave 1 high.
Connection lost.
So this being from our wave 2, this would be our wave 1. Now we're looking for 3 waves to come down for a wave 2. So let's clean this up. And we can clear some of these out of here. So wave 1 candidate. Well, of course, we're looking for, anytime we get a completed 5 wave, we're looking for some sort of confluence, something to help us identify. We know the minimum requirement that we're looking for is the 50%. So interesting, the golden's on here. Not that it applies as it's relative, right? So from here, from that wave 3, we've already realized that. So now we just move it up 1. So we'd look now from, we know it from our A to our B. All right, so they can be anywhere from the 50 to 786, gets just a tick through the golden zone, but now has come down here, already hit the target, and you're seeing a little reaction. Does that mean the C is done? Probably not, but let's go down to a smaller time frame. Let's look at it. All right, so here's our, let's take a look here, see if we got this just right. That looks like that's going to be our A wave. So a little squirrely. Let's get it tightened up a little bit. We get right on these pivots. Okay, so this has to get tightened, as is often the case when you change time frames. Okay, so it looks like I've got, now this is a bit of an anomaly here. So that can only be A, B, C. So so we can have an overlap here for an expanded flat into a B wave, but it's likely news driven. Something shot that down. So here's, you can look left here. Some sort of structural support here kicks in. So we get to the tick. So from this pivot, we really got 2 of them right here. We can see prior resistance, potentially now setting up for some support. So it looks like I've got to go A, B, C, and then A, B, C again. So there's some complexity in this correction. But from that, here now we've come now to the algo target. So even though we get through here, it looks a little sloppy. Well, so you look at that and you think, well, okay, so if they took that, and because we get stopped out, now we're leaning bullish, well, then the next thing they do, and they would use the lower pivot, which is here, right? They get stopped out again. All right, so they've taken 2 losers in a row. So now they're thinking bearish. So from our pivot here, possibly a front run. Hard to say. So it looks to me more like that's some sort of A or 1, 2, 3, 4. Potentially now we've gone down and completed here at the second algo target. It's possible. Hard to say. Not precise enough for me to want to just jump all over that and buy it. But if I look here, so coming down from here, it looks like I've got a candidate here. 1, 2, 3, maybe. This is 4 and 5 going down. I don't think we're done. Now let's get that down to a degree that's not silly here. So let's get, we'll go up 1. Let's go to micro. Okay, so a very complex B wave here coming off of this high. But I've got an A. Let's take that up a degree. So we'll go to blue and we'll go to subminuet. Okay, so potentially now 1, 2, 3 is in, 4 going in. Note we don't get the 1. So if I look here from my 2 to my 3, all right, so we come right to the 50. Oops, we come right to the 50 in the Vegas wave. We get to absolutely split the Vegas wave. Then it looks like we've got a candidate coming down here for the 5th. Well, so let's see if we can stitch all of that back together. Let's go back out and see how that relates to this pivot. All right, no, actually, pardon me, not that pivot. We got to go all the way back 1. So can I get them all together? Okay, so from this pivot, we're looking for our 2. We're looking for our 2 here. So can we get there off of this? Well, maybe not. So this could just be, we could just be starting. This could be the wave 1 of the C wave. So think, if we could go as far down here as this, and we've got to get a C wave here. So let's take that up. Let's go to, there we go. Okay, so this, if we're going to tap here and get a pivot at the algo target, which we don't know for sure, right? It's just a candidate. We may just have something along the lines of a 1, 2 going in. So this would be potentially 1, 2 goes up, 3, 4, 5, something like that. And I'm just using the golden zone as a target down here. So that we got to see what happens here. It's too soon to call this. We don't know if we get a pivot here. It's a candidate given that perfect tap of the 50. So we've got a candidate here. If we get a decent reaction off of that, then likely that's just the 1 wave before we go 3, 4, and 5 to give us that C wave here. And candidate would be, so golden zone, easy candidate to consider. If we think about putting that all together, how and then just laying out, well, how are we going to get there? Right? So that would be a pretty substantial C wave relative to this as an AB, but let's just look at it. So we can measure and say, well, what is that odds of that? So if that's my A wave there, that's my B wave. Well, we'd be going deep. So interestingly, so here's my golden zone area, or pardon me, my high probability zone for a wave 3 here relative to this AB. So this would be a reasonable candidate for a C here at the 50. So if we think about that, then this all has to be, everything has to be reduced. So maybe we get a diagonal of some sort here. It's hard to say, right? So we're just hypothesizing as to what we're going to get here. We just don't know, and nothing says that we have to stop here. That's just a candidate as it lines up rather interestingly with the 50. But if we've got more legs, well, here's the 200%. 2618 would be down here. That would be a real extreme for a C relative to the length of A projected from the B. 26, but I've seen them, right? They do happen. So that's a candidate down here. That would be a very deep retracement, but it's a possibility. So we just want to mark. So next thing we need is the next pivot and the next retrace. Then that helps us identify the probabilities. Do we have a third going in? How does that subdivide? So it's all just right now, we're just kind of hypothesizing a possible roadmap to get us there. So if I pull some of that off and we'll take this, let's go to a smaller degree here. We'll go sub-micro there. All right, so it's kind of a wait and see. I would not be looking to be a buyer here because we're not deep enough. We're looking for a wave 2. I would let this first 5-wave structure, if indeed we're going to get a clean, in this case it looks like it'll be an impulse. If we get a clean impulse coming down, I'd let that pivot and then wait for the retracement. So there's definitely a possible trade there for the retrace to catch possibly the 2, the B, some sort of a retrace off of that next retracement. But all the opportunity for the next buys are going to be either here at the 50 or coming down here as we approach the golden zone. Right? Looks like, so I've wicked that off as that's likely a prior pivot here. So here's our wave 1, potentially now offering some support. Here's the wave 4, potentially offering some prior resistance, kicking in for some support. So all of those are options, things we want to pay attention to as we come down, looking for that combination that we're always looking for. That combination of pattern, algo swings, geometry. It's got to be all put together so that we get confluence. And when we identify that confluence, then you take the trade, right? You do the risk-reward analysis. Can I afford to take that trade? If I can't afford it at my normal size, maybe I have to cut my size by a third or a half so that I can get an initial entry there, but not be over-leveraged as I go into a trade like this. So, these are all just calculations you have to make based on your own trade plan, your own risk profile, with your account size. All of those things have to be factored into that. All I can show you here is that we've got a potential roadmap setting up. And it's been very technical. All of this, we've seen that pivot down here at the 50. All very good candidate for a 1. 2's going in. So do you want to try and get into that 2 and trade some of it? Well, there's certainly opportunity there. Now, again, as I will remind you, when you go to FX, I would strongly encourage you stay 60-minute or above. There's just, look at that, right? There's just, look at that. There's just way too much noise on the lower time frames that I would propose to you, and I've traded a lot of Forex. 60 minutes or above. It's just too noisy. There's too much hyper volatility to get any. So you want to put a wave count on that? How about that? It's just noise. It's just noise until you get a hard pivot to work with. I'm not saying that wouldn't be technical if you went down to the 15-minute. It likely would. But as we sit back here trying to get a handle on where we are in the larger count, again, this comes from many, many years of trading FX. I just want to encourage you to think 60-minute and above. And I would go daily or 3-day daily, 4-hour, 60-minute. And the only reason to go below that is that you were unsure about a count and you were digging out a count down on the 15-minute to make sure you had 5 in a, whatever wave structure you're looking for. Do you have an impulse in your third? If you're trading a diagonal, what's happening down there? Do we have a good clean ABC? But just again, I would just caution you, think twice about going below it, because that can lead to a whole lot of, just a whole lot of frustration. All right, so that's what I see here. I think this is very tradable here. I do want to see this 5-wave complete. I'll wait for the next retracement. Then I would definitely consider a short on it. And look for the setup. So you're looking for the double. You're trying to get the ride down into the buy zone to catch the ride up. And that will be, if that's going to go, that will be the big one, as that'll be the start of the third wave, which is we all know is our moneymaker. All right, so that should give you enough to work with there. I'd let this 5th wave get resolved. All right, with that, I'll wrap it there. I'll be back with you one more. Got one more traditional asset to look at today. All right, back to you shortly.